Good day everyone. So today's class we are going to discuss about synapses and neuronal accommodation. So what is the definition of synapses? So synapses is nothing but it's a junction between the two neurons. So the neuron is going to communicate with the another neuron or another muscle or gland cell. So this is what the definition of synapses. So this synapses, the signal transmission will happen in either of two ways. One is by chemical synapses, another by electrical synapses. So in chemical synapses what will happen is it is going to use the chemical substances, that is it is going to release the neurotransmitter. So that will what be happening in the chemical synapses. In electrical synapses what will happen is it will be direct physical connection to the electrical signals. So this is what the electrical synapses. So this chemical synapses is mostly used for the most complicated communication, and this electrical signals synapses it is going to be used for the very synchronized communication. So in chemical synapses what will happen is how it is going to work is the electrical signal will trigger the release of neurotransmitter. So that neurotransmitter either it is going to excite or inhibit, and this neurotransmitter is going to bind with the another neuron, and this chemical synapses is mostly used for the complicated communication. Okay, this neurotransmitter it is either going to exit or it is going to be inhibit. While excitation what will happen is, while excitatory synapses what will happen is, so excitatory synapses it has a green light. So green light is nothing but it is going to help the another neuron to fire action potential, or this excitatory synapse what will happen is it is going to send its own signals to the another neuron. So these two things will happen in the excitatory synapse. How this will happen is, so as I already told you in action potential, when you are giving a strong stimulus, what will happen is the sodium voltage channels will be opening. As soon as the sodium voltage channels opens, the sodium will be rushing in, so making inside cell more positive. So that time there will be a firing of action potential. So this process will happen in the excitatory synapse. In inhibitory synapse what will happen is it is a red light. So it is going to stop firing the action potential, and it is not going to help the other neuron by giving its own signals. So in this what will happen is it is going to allow the chloride and potassium in. Then what will happen? As usual what will happen is it is going to stop, it is going to prevent firing the action potential. So this is what will happen in the excitatory synapses and inhibitory synapses. So excitatory synapses due to sodium rushing in, it is going to fire the action potential. In inhibitory synapse what will happen is due to chloride in and potassium out, it is going to prevent the firing of the action potential. And then actually what is happening inside the cell? So neurons in the resting state inside will be of more negative. So in excitatory signals what will happen is the inside will be less negative. So if it is less negative it will help in firing the action potential. But in inhibitory phase inside will be of more negative. So it will stop firing the action potential. Next, electrical synapses. So electrical synapses is nothing but the ions will be directly passed from one neuron to another between a protein channel called gap junction. Okay, so these two neurons will be placed close to each other and separated by a small distance called gap junction, and this electrical synapses is mostly used to synchronize their activity. Neurons synchronize their activity. And then this synapses is mainly critically for the function of the nervous system. So it is going to enable the brain and the body to process the information and react to that. So this is what will the functioning of the synapses. Okay, how it works? So when electrical signal will reaches the axon terminal of the first neuron, that time what will happen? The calcium will be travel along with this. So due to this increased concentration, the calcium will be triggering the synaptic vesicles to release the neurotransmitter, and that neurotransmitter what will happen is that neurotransmitter is going to diffuse with the cell membrane and is going to cross the synaptic cleft. From synaptic cleft it is going to reach to the another neuron. So this process what will happen is this neurotransmitter it is either it is going to be broke down or it is going to be absorbed by the first neuron. So this binding process what will happen? The second neuron's chemical energy is going to convert into a electrical energy. So if it is going to convert from chemical to electrical, and it is going to start to fire an action potential. So this is the real work of the synapses. Yes, what are the transmitters? What are the inhibitory transmitter and excitatory transmitters? So inhibitory neurotransmitters are the serotonin, GABA and glycine, and excitatory neurotransmitters are the acetylcholine, norepinephrine and dopamine. Yes, so I will give you an example for synapses. Okay, first you are going to speak. that is electrical signal. And then second one, that speak, it's going to convert into a text, that is chemical signal. And third one, to whom you are going to send that message, that receiver going to receive that message and it is going, and he or she going to speak it out, that is the electrical signal. So initially it is starting with the electrical signal and then it is coming to chemical and then again it begins with the electrical signal. First you are going to speak and then the speak going to convert into text. Again what will happen, the receiver going to read the text and again it is going to, he is going to speak out. So this is what will be happening in the synapses. Next we'll move on to the topic neuronal accommodation. So this neuronal accommodation is nothing but if you are giving a slowly rising stimulus to a nerve or muscle, it will not fire an action potential. So that is what the neuronal accommodation. So if you are giving a slow rising stimulus either to a nerve or muscle, it does not fire an action potential. So this is what the neuronal accommodation. Okay, how neurons actually it will fire? How it fire? It's like whenever what will happen is if you are giving a strong and sudden stimulus, what will happen is the sodium voltage channels will be open and sodium going to get rush in and inside is going to become more positive. That time there will be a firing of an action potential. But in neuronal process, in neural accommodation, what will happen is when you are giving a slow stimulus, what will happen is the sodium channel is going to open, but there will be inactivation of a sodium channel. And also the potassium channels is going to open, but the potassium channels what will happen is it is going to let out. This potassium channel also is going to open, but this potassium channel also going to go out. So with this confusion what will happen, there will be effect of the threshold energy. So even though if you are giving a strong stimulus, this slow rising stimulus what will happen is it will stop firing of action potential. So this is what will be the neuronal accommodation it works. I'll explain you again. In neuronal accommodation what will happen is if you are giving a slow rising stimulus either a neuron or nerve vessel, it will not fire an action potential. Normally in neuron how it get fires like initially if you are giving a sudden and stronger stimulus to a particular kind of muscle, what will happen is there will be a sodium voltage gannett, it is going to be open. As soon as it open, the sodium channel is going to rush in and it makes the inside cell more positive. So that time there will be a firing of an action potential. If it is in a neural accommodation, what will happen is if you are giving a stimulus in a slow rising stimulus, what will happen is the sodium voltage cathode channel is going to open, but there will be inactivation of a sodium. And also potassium channels is all going to open, but potassium is going to let out. So because of this confusion, there will be a problem in the threshold. Even though if you are giving a stronger threshold, what will happen is because of the slow and rising stimulus, this will stop creating an action potential. So this is what will be happening in the neuronal accommodation. Yes, so what are the functions of neural accommodation? So it is going to be a protective mechanism. So it will not encourages the unnecessary firing in response to the minor or non-urgent stimuli, and it is also helpful in the signal filtering. So unwanted things it is not going to encourage, and it is going to support the meaningful inputs, and also potentially irrelevant ones it is going to reject it. And third one, it is going to be helpful in the relevant myelinated axons. So this is what about the neuronal accommodation. So neural accommodation is nothing but if you are giving a slow rising stimulus to a nerve or muscle, it is not going to fire an action potential. But if you are giving a stronger stimulus, stronger and sudden stimulus, the muscle is going to fire an action potential. So this is what about the neural accommodation. So this is what about the today's class. Thank you.